Ladies and gentlemen, yes indeed everybody, welcome to the grand finals of HomeStory Cup 23, which is Reynor versus Solar. That is Reynor for BASILISK, and Solar will be playing for Onsyde Gaming. These players have fought long and hard to be in this final. Reynor has faced Lambo in the groups and actually lost 1-2. Whereas Solar only fought Fjant in the group stages, and he managed to beat him handily 2-0. And then in the playoffs, Reynor had to face Cyril, who is the highest rated player, well, as a Zerg and player, basically, and is the highest rated ZVZ player. So even though Reynor lost one in the groups, he is probably in form. On the other side, we have Solar, who dispatched Liquid's a laser with a 3-0, whereas a laser showed a decent grasp on ZVZ by beating Lambo in his playoff games in the round of 8 before that. So both of these players have shown that they can hang in the ZVZ. And if we look at a Legalac, when we compare these two players, this match included, it thinks that Solar should win 60% of the times when these players play a best of 3. But this is a best of 7. Reynor has the higher overall rating, whereas Solar has a higher ZVZ specific rating. So I'm not sure what to make of that. All I know is that this is going to be a banger. Reynor only mining 2 gas, so he's delaying his own speed a little bit. As you can see, speed for Solar has already started. Aside from that, the matches seem pretty mirrored. I wonder why Reynor is delaying his own speed here, or if he is taking speed at all, or if he's doing what I would love to see, cheeky 2-base build. Nice Roach Warren over there, and just Queens closing down the base. Ooh. Solar does get the scout here, the Lynx do come in, and they do see that speed is being researched now, and there's still gas being mined. No third base. Other side of the map, Solar's mining slightly less gas, making his own Evo chamber and a third base. So, what is Reynor doing? Oh, quick lair! Even cancelled this speed for it, so this could be a super fast Nidus with this super fast lair, but it could also still be just roaches with roach speed. It could even be, in theory, Mutalisk. He's taking all of his gases, but he is getting +1 range. So, since he's taking all of these gases, it's looking like this will be 2-base Mutalisk. This is, of course, a nice map to do it on, because this wall is pretty easy to take. Solar's getting Carapace. He's getting his 3 queens up on his 3 bases, whereas Reynor chooses to stick on 2. Reynor showing us that 2-basing in ZVZ is indeed viable, and the Spire is down a little over 4 minutes, so these are going to be some heckin' darn fast Spire units. Most likely the Mutalisk. Spire is now going down for Solar, whilst he is already saturating his 3rd base. And Reynor, of course, not getting that 3rd base up and running that quickly in favor of more tech. And Solar really wants to get a scout in, because he does not know. He doesn't have overseers yet. And now there's a couple roaches out here, whilst the Spire is still waiting to complete. So you can do this in 2 different ways. You can kind of skip roach speed and maybe even this upgrade and speed as well to have a lot of gas for a lot of Mutalisk. But if your opponent, especially with +1 armor and Zerglings, pressures your 3rd base location, you're not getting that 3rd base up until you have those mutas out. which just makes it very difficult to ever get a third base in a timely fashion, which is why Reynor opts to get +1 range here and roach speed so that he has a clean transition into roaches afterwards, but he'll have the map advantage with these Mutalisk. Like, any Ravagers or basically anything that moves across the map will be killed by those Mutas before they eventually arrive at Reynor's third base. But, of course, that third base is hecka late. Even though the worker count is kind of similar, because a 2-base can also just hide a big Roach Flood, Ling Flood. But now he knows for sure, Solar that it is indeed Mutalisk. He has the spores ready to deal with it. He has a Hydralisk den, but everywhere across the map, Overlords, or Zerglings in this case, are being hunted down and killed, establishing a dominating map presence for Reynor on this first map on Royal Blood. And we now see 6 Hydras coming out, 4 Solar 9 even. He's going hard on the Hydras. Of course, kind of necessary to make sure that you can actually move across the map at all. Second Evo being added on by Reynor, and also +2 range. And as you can see, drone-wise, they're actually pretty equal, but Reynor has a bunch of Muta, which give him a lot of map control, give him the option to harass these gases, this gas, these gases. He actually has his Mutalisk split up. Jeez, what a flex, honestly. Scouting with 3 Mutalisk, whilst keeping the other 5 across the map here, trying to catch a little creep spread. That's, of course, nice. As the Mutalisk player, you would like there to be the least amount of creep on the field as possible, because Mutalisk don't benefit of creep, and Hydralisk and Roaches definitely do, so the less creep there is, the longer it takes your opponent to get across the map. Scouting Roach, not seeing all too much, and we see another 10 Roaches here by Solar. Seems like he wants to push out off of his 3 bases in an attempt to try and crush Reynor here. Solar's up in supply and up in army. 1-1 upgrades are done, not researching another one, so this is a pretty hefty timing here. No 4th base going down behind it either. It's just Roaches reinforcing here. And Reynor has 2 spines ready, has Ravagers ready, and still has Mutalisk trying to shoot down some of these reinforcements, and Reynor's actually chasing here. Hydras get decoupled from the army, that's not that good. And a part of the Hydralisk backbone is actually fighting those Mutalisk. Really nicely done by Reynor, distracting those Hydralisks. They are the higher DPS units in Solar's army, so you actually want them to be shooting the main army of Reynor here. Corrosive Biles making positioning really hard for Solar, but Solar's about to max out. Mutalisk still being annoying here in the natural, but as Solar, you just want to ignore that and put the pedal to the metal and attack. Your timing is now, it's not tomorrow. And he's on the creep of Reynor. If these Hydras get to shoot, he can win this fight, but if he keeps being dissuaded from standing his ground by these Corrosive Biles, he will slowly but surely be whittled away by Reynor's defensive advantage, and soon to be his upgrade advantage. And Solar decides to go home, tucks tail. He thinks, okay, I'm not busting you right now. I need a plan B. Plan B is a 4th base, whilst Reynor already has a 4th base up and running. Reynor has a very comfortable position here. Corrosive Biles coming down, but his army gets caught a little bit. A lot of Ravagers go down there, but this is an awkward choke to go into, especially against those Corrosive Biles. And now Reynor engaging with his entire army, with half the army of Solar. The Solar's army over here being ignored, but now he gets a pincer, but I think most of his army at the top already died. He got onto the soft underbelly of the Hydralisk, and now these Roaches have to work overtime to actually break down Reynor's forces, but it seems to be a split here where Reynor is just ahead economically, and now is also taking a supply lead. Really seeing that upgrade lead that Reynor has, and also his army composition is just better in these chokes with the Ravager Corrosive Biles really forcing Solar to consistently maneuver his army. And this seems kind of like a desperation attempt by Solar to stay in the game. And he GG's out. He knows he can't defend his 4th base from Reynor's stronger army, both bigger and better upgraded. And just like that, Reynor brings us into game number 2. Solar versus Reynor Grand Finals, HomeStory Cup 23. Or number, 23. In the year 2023. Crazy. Small deviation over here. Oh no, never mind. So I really enjoyed seeing Reynor's game number 1 build, where he 2-based it up versus a very standard style by Solar. And I'm just a lover, an enjoyer of the 2-base in Zerg vs Zerg. So I'm glad to see Reynor pull it out in a grand final and show us it's viable, it's good. He just won a game versus frickin' Solar, guys, with a 2-base. And that's just the power of the 2-base. If you have a nice choke where you can have 2 buildings and a queen, you can hide a lot of things behind that wall. It could be anything. It could be Fast Lair. Fast Lair can be Roach Speed +1 timing attack. It can be a Nidus. It can be a Spire. It can even be some other wacky things that aren't as good, but still it's possible. Even Swarm Hosts. But you could also just be hiding a Link Flood into taking a quick 3rd base, or a Link Flood into doing a secondary timing attack after with +1. Like, there's so many things that can come out of a 2-base. You can even be hiding a 3rd base if there's a cheeky gold base or a rich gas geyser on the map. I love doing that personally. Just 2-base it up, you take that hidden base with the rich gas geysers, and you go Muta off of 4 gases plus the rich gases. You just have infinite Mutalisk. Even if the guy's 3-base mutaing you because they think it's an easy win, they'll still lose. I also love the variations where you have the hatchery in the wall. I never quite mastered those, but those are very cheeky. It's kind of like a 2.5 base at that point, because you still have the larva. But it's only viable where because larvae always spawn at the bottom side of a hatchery, you kind of, well, you can do it on this base, for example, but you can't do it on Solar Space because the larva will spawn on the outside of your wall. So it's a little spawn dependent if you can do those builds. This game, however, both players completely mirroring each other, which gave me the opportunity to gush a little bit about those juicy 2-base builds. We see Reynor again with a fast Roach Warren. We saw him do this as well versus Lambo and Serral, where it was just basically about who roaches first and who roaches in response to the other guy's roaches. And Reynor was, well, very keen on being the first one to employ the Roach Warren. So we see a couple links coming out from Solar, even a defensive Baneling. So playing pretty safe here, Mr. Solar. Queen's ready at the 3rd base to inject. So even though they're doing small things differently, it seems that they're doing pretty much the same thing. But Reynor has 8 roaches underway. We've seen him do this before, and now we're seeing him do it again. This link is trying to get some scouting information. He sees no upgrade, so maybe he can sniff this one out, Solar. But it's pretty difficult. The roaches are now underway. He sees it. He sees the roaches. He starts his own Roach Warren right away. He starts a Spine Crawler. And he's starting to make more Zerglings. His Baneling does get killed. More Banelings are being morphed, but only from Reynor so far. No Banelings from Solar side here. And the roaches are in between the Nat and the 3rd base. So what is Reynor going to do with this attack? He's not droning behind it just yet. Roach Warren is almost done. And Reynor looks to be taking the guaranteed damage of the third base over a potential bust, because that spine is almost done. Second spine is coming up. There were 3 queens with even a transfuse ready, and Reynor elects a drone behind it. He's like, okay, Solar, I caught you a little bit off guard, but not enough to kill you. But definitely enough to kill your third base. And now he actually runs in with the roaches, probably looking to trade off these Banes and then move out again, forcing some extra units out of Solar, because if he leaves right now, Solar can actually choose to not make these roaches. And if he has a cheeky lair, which sadly he doesn't... Oh my god. That's a cheeky drone. He gets that third base a little earlier than he should. Really nice play by Solar. But in the meanwhile, Reynor has already saturated his third base almost. No lair on the field yet for Reynor, but Solar does make his lair. His only advantage right now is that tech. But Reynor is fast on his heels. Reynor just seems to be in the driver's seat this game. Solar does have +1 carapace going for him, but he's at an economic deficit, and aside from that carapace, not really ahead in tech just yet. Maybe he can get a timing going somewhere, but the tech is too close, I feel like. So the only advantage that Solar really has is this +1 carapace, which can be very useful right now and later in the game. But Reynor just so comfortable taking more gases, 6 gases now. Lair almost done. Wouldn't surprise me if he throws down a cheeky spire and then, you know, see if he uses it. He doesn't have to. But, oh, so many drones for Reynor. Lair done for both players. We see Roach Speed coming out for both players. And now a Hydra Den for Reynor, actually. So maybe expecting Solar to do a cheeky Muta response because he was being forced to be on 2 base, which is not an uncommon response. As a Zerg player in ZVZ, if you're forced on 2 base, you always think for that one moment, you're like, should I be 2 base mutating right now? Because that usually gets you back into the game. And we see a Spire coming out from Solar here, so they're... Oh, into an immediate cancellation because he saw that Hydralisk Den. It's like, nope, we're not doing that. If I was Solar now, I would just go hard on the roaches. Maybe second Evo or a quick Infestation Pit to get a couple Vipers out. Just hope that Reynor's going for Lurkers instead of just Hydras. And then you can just yoink those Lurkers out of the ground and overwhelm with your Roach Force. Then let's see what Solar does, an actually good player. 4th base almost done for Solar. Pretty nice by Solar. Now has a similar worker count as well. So even though he's slightly on the back foot, I think that's fair to say, he is ahead in upgrades. And he has a similar worker count. So if he can survive until he's maxed, this could be pretty good for Solar, but Reynor's not about to let that happen. He's moving out. He's like, you have an upgrade advantage? I have an army size advantage. He's like 30 more army supply. And now you see that Solar is trying to use corrosive vials to kind of offset that difference. Getting nice trades, but the 4th base is in peril. And Reynor actually targets it down and gets a pretty decent trade here. Because remember, he is up in economy. And even though this seems like a decent trade for Solar, he did just lose his 4th base, which he so desperately kind of needed to hold, because with that 4th base, he can drone it up, he can get enough larvae to make enough roaches and actually max out. But now, since Reynor traded out nicely, really nice move by Reynor, recognizing the position that he's in, clicking the units of Solar and recognizing that he is slightly behind in those upgrades. Actually going to even up really soon. This is an anti-timing by Solar. As soon as Solar clicks on a unit from Reynor, it might be too late. He probably pushes in. Because if he clicks on a unit of Reynor, he will see that Reynor has 2-0 to his 1-1. And he'll know that now my only advantage is mute. He has to wait for his next upgrade, which is actually being contaminated by the Overseer of Reynor. Reynor knows what's going on. He's in the zone, my guys. Or girls, of course, or anything in between. He knows that the only thing that gives Solar the right to stay in this game are the upgrades. And he contaminates, and he moves in. He has a big supply lead. And he's just forcing the fight again and again and again. Solar's not allowed to max out. This fourth base is not coming up. And Reynor says, get the F out of my game. And just like that, Basilisk's Reynor takes the 2-0 lead in this best of 7 grand finals. Honestly, it looks like Reynor is pummeling Solar right now, and Solar is just on the defensive. We see it in their builds as well. Reynor elects for a nice cheeky 2-base in the first game, kind of taking the initiative to diversify his build before Solar gets a chance to do so. And then in the second game, he makes it look like he's doing something standard, but he still had a knife in the dark, and he was able to pull out a nice roach push to take down Solar's third base and take a commanding lead in that game, and then he just rode it out. He knew exactly what his advantages were and what Solar's possible advantages were that still allowed him to play that game, and he just shut it down. Nice contamination play, making sure that Solar could not maintain his upgrade lead, and Reynor just shut him out of that game with his economic lead and his larva lead. He was just able to produce more stuff. And now in the third game, I feel like Solar's nose is a little bloodied already. And he needs to start punching back because he just... I blanked on the word. He just keeps taking the punches, basically. He just got a nice one-hit, 1-2 punch combo onto his face, delivered by Reynor. And now Solar needs to pick himself up and show us that he can actually hang with Reynor in this ZVZ. Because if the match keeps going like this, it's gonna be too easy for Reynor, I feel like. Really showing that he's dictating the match so far. He's doing the builds. He's not just doing standard and kind of hoping that his opponent makes a mistake. No, he deviates from what his opponent is doing and makes his opponents react to him. So if this is how the series is going to look, I'm really favoring Reynor. He's daring to take the risks first. He's daring to put it on the line. For now, though, we still see this stock standard 3-base Zerg versus Zerg opener, which you can use at home to fine-tune your own timings. You can use this replay or many others to make sure that if you can hit these timings, then you're playing some Grand Master level StarCraft for the first 3 minutes. Trust me, it becomes increasingly hard, but also increasingly more rewarding. Now we see actually 10 links coming out from Reynor. He might be ready to put on a little Ling Bane aggression. Although we see them pretty similar in drone count, and now Solar has seen these links. Solar has a link count of his own. Both players make it an Evo chamber. Small differences are starting to show themselves, but in broad strokes, these are still mirrored builds. Not trying to do anything that the other one is not doing. Both have Evo chambers. No upgrades just yet. 2 Banes at home for Solar. He's always the defensive one in that sense. And we see +1 Carapace coming out for Solar. Really favoring the +1 Carapace so far in this best of 7. And also a Roach Warren here. Was Reynor's just investing in Lings and Banelings, baby. He's going to test Solar a little with some aggression. Puts his lings on the queens. If not attended to, these queens might die, and that's a big loss for Solar. Both queens go down. That's not supposed to happen. Solar, what are you going to do now? Immediately fires up another queen. And that's a lot of banelings in your base, killing your dudes. Damn, and just like that, Reynor just pulled the trigger on Solar. He's not impressed with your play so far, Solar. So far, though, he is still defending, trying to pick off these banelings one by one. It's a very dangerous dance that slowly but surely Reynor can whittle you down. Another queen gets caught. Third queen dies. The more queens die, the less likely it is that Reynor can, or Solar can hold on here. Reynor finds the fourth queen. And the writing is on the wall. If you lose that many queens and you're still on the back foot, it's not going well. That means you're losing a lot of larvae and money. And now the banelings are in your main. And Solar is forced to GG out once again. This man is on bloody fire. Reynor takes a 3-0 lead in this best of 7. Running over Solar and running circles around his corpse already. Or is presumed to be dead corpse. Because Solar is still alive in this series, but say Reynor is already on match point. He just needs one more cheeky win. And he wins the grand finals. And is the champion of HomeStory Cup 23. And now if there's ever a matchup where it's pretty darn easy to take a cheeky one over your opponent, it is Zerg versus Zerg. You just don't see that one little Ling Flood coming. You don't see those 2 banelings running into your third base. And suddenly, it's all Ogre. Solar needs to really shape up and take the reins of this series if he wants to even stand a chance of taking this grand final for himself. Of course, again, we see these builds being pretty much mirrored. We see a slightly faster gas for Reynor, but not that much faster. It's like a 10 gas difference. So for all intensive purposes, they are doing a mirrored build once more. Interested to see what we're gonna see out of Reynor, because he knows he has some games to play with. He can try some cheeky stuff, and even if it fails, he has a lot more games to go. Whereas Solar is in this precarious position where he's been playing safe, standard, normal games, and he's just been getting clobbered by Reynor. First with a 2-base, then with a Roach Push, and then just with a Lingbane Shove. And he just kind of fell over and died. But he's electing to just do the same thing, for now at least. Just get those 3 bases up and running. And we'll go from there. I can respect a player that he knows what he has practiced. And he's not going to deviate from it when the going gets tough. You're not gonna do better than your practice, basically. Now is the time to execute. We see Baneling Nest for Solar, but none for Reynor. So, could be a small opportunity for Solar to punish, but it's tight. And we see a lot of lings coming from Reynor. 20 more lings in production. This is a ling flood that we can only address formally. That's how big it is. But drones aren't being made behind it by Reynor, so this is kind of a small commitment, but if you don't take this seriously, you could lose your third base. When the Banes are done, however, Reynor can't stay and fight here. The queens are in peril once more. And one does get targeted down, but one we can recover from. Nice baneling hit by Solar there. And yes, he does lose a queen. That means he loses a little bit of larva. But there is no third queen for Reynor, so they're pretty even on larva. So this is basically even Stevens so far. And Solar in a pretty comfortable position, knowing that he just defended a pretty committed Ling flood. And there's more Lings and Banes coming from Reynor because he knows... He saw that Solar is now moving out, and Solar is in the driver's seat. Solar decides, do I make drones or do I make more Ling Bane now? As long as he trades efficiently here, he can choose either. He's making some roaches, he's making some drones, forcing Reynor to make a bunch of units, and then he backs off. Another Baneling gets a decent connection, but 3 Lings for a Bane is kind of okay. Baneling's walking into the natural here from Reynor, getting no connections to the drones. Looking a little desperate, low on drones as well. I feel like Reynor's pulling the trigger here. Like, he's behind in drones, and he's just making Zerglings and Banelings. So this game ends here. The only way this continues is if Reynor gets this third base for free and then drones behind it. But Solar has a bunch of Banes, he has a bunch of Lings, and I don't think he's ready to give up this third base. A lot of Banelings go down here to the Queens and some Zerglings. Third base is being targeted down. And it might actually go down. Oh, it's so low, it's so low! Transfuses save the day, and that is horrific for Reynor. Look at the drone count. He didn't get this third base, the trophy that he needed to achieve with that attack. Was not given to him by Solar, and now he's definitely on the back foot. What can Reynor do to come back into this game? Well, get some nice juicy drone damage would be good. We see a lair coming from Solar as well. Solar's just shooting ahead now. More drones. And a slightly bigger army, as long as he doesn't lose this third base and doesn't get surprised by Reynor. I don't see much that can happen for Reynor here. So far behind in the drone count. And now he's also being scouted. I feel like this should be a fake lair, because you just don't have the drones to support this lair, Reynor. Yes, it got cancelled. It was a nice attempt. And Solar doesn't know for sure if it was a fake lair or not, but we know that this is the last ditch effort by Reynor. He's going to run around all of the Overlord vision of Solar, and he does see it, I think. And now Reynor runs in, final attempt to kill Solar. But, oh, the Banes blow up on a couple Roaches and another Baneling. That is probably not enough. A lot of Lings here, though. They get into the natural. Wrap around the Queen and the Roach. A lot of Banelings here to clean up. More Zerglings, but there are no more Zerglings from Solar. It's just Roaches, Roaches, Roaches. And he blows up his Banelings on the hatchery. So maybe this can be enough for Reynor, but it probably won't be, because Reynor's just reinforcing with pure Ling. And he can't break these Roaches. And just like that, Solar gets one over Reynor, and he's back in the series. And just like that, Solar gives Reynor a bloody but confident smile and asks him, "Is that all you got?" After going down 3-0 to Reynor, Solar takes a game. And now we are 3-1 in this best of 7. Let's see if Solar can hold on to this momentum. We see a very quick hatchery from Reynor, actually going up to 15 drones and getting a hatch and building an Overlord after the fact. And now getting a pool on 15 as well. Curious to see if this is going to be a rush of some sorts. Because it looks like you have a hatchery, but you still have a decently fast pool. I'm not sure what this is all about. It does give you a slightly faster hatchery, giving you that creep. So maybe this is going to be another one of those 2-base builds. If this is a 2-base build, I am copying the shit out of this for my next ladder session. Because I love this faster hatchery for the faster creep. But it does look to be slightly less economical. Solar, can you hold on? Can you grab this momentum that you just created for yourself? By the skin of your teeth, you are now on the board in this series. Can you keep this up? Don't run out of steam, just keep on going. And Solar scouts this hatchery and sees that it's differently timed from his own. So he has to be slightly more careful here, making Zerglings right away to scout from his natural so that they get across the map ASAP. It's looking good. Drone heading to this 3rd base location. Interesting 3rd base to take with a rich geyser and a nice forward position to make roaches from, for example. Other side, we see Reynor has 2 queens in the front. And no 3rd base just yet. I'm getting a little excited. Because this is kind of a 2-base. Roach weren't in the back, so this might be one of those roach rushes. Queen about to spawn, and Solar does confirm that there is no lair. That is a big scout. Another Zergling comes in, and you can see the drone count here. You see a bunch of drones being created from the gnat, but there's also a bunch of larvae here ready in the main to become roaches. We see double Evo at the front. Looking to maybe punish this 3rd base out of Reynor. But Solar knows that something is up. I like that he's showing a 2-base again. But now, it's a bunch of roaches coming out. I'm wondering if these... Oh! Zerglings do come in, but the roaches are already out. So what I was wondering is if he's going to send these queens across as well. Because if these queens come across to his creep, Solar's creep that is, they can be pretty darn useful. So far, they're only killing this Overlord. Ideally, you would have seen these queens move across the map a little earlier. But still, +1 is being researched. 3rd base has been put down. And Reynor has a decent drone count now. Solar was actually being very apprehensive in droning up himself, so Reynor's actually ahead now. So the mind games are kind of in favor of Reynor here. Solar now has his own Roach Warrant, and he has +1 Carapace and a bunch of Lings. So again, if the Solar favoring the +1 Carapace, and if he can, make use of this extra good gas. What is it called? Rich Vespine Geyser. He can transition pretty well. It takes a lot less drones to get this much gas. Very efficient play. He's going to have a timing with these +1 Carapace as well. Maybe he can take down the 3rd base of Reynor before +1 range finishes for Reynor. Not knocking down these rocks just yet, though, to move across. But maybe he wants to keep this slow zone for himself defensively. We see a pretty fast lair and 4 gases again for Reynor. So, with more roaches, probably going to invest in roach speed and double upgrades here. Could be a Spire, but it would be a little weird. And Solar just moved across the map, trying to capitalize on that Carapace upgrade. Trying to get his Lings into the natural. +1 Carapace Lings are no joke, and the Ravagers are really good with them. Nice around. Oh! And he dunks on the roaches of Reynor with those corrosive biles. What a nice combination of the Ravagers and the Lings. And Solar is just overrunning Reynor here. Nice lair you got there. You're not doing anything with that. We do have a Spinecrawler here to kind of be an anchor for Reynor, but he's being surrounded again by these +1 Carapace Lings. +1 range did finish for the Reynor now, so his roaches became a little bit more efficient, but he just doesn't have the numbers, or does he? Oh, this Spine proving his worth, and Reynor is up in worker, so if he can defend, he can actually win this game in the economical race. Ooh, Ling run by does get into the main. And in the third base, Solar's trying to move in. Ooh, main base, there are some drone kills being gotten. Oh, Solar can't quite find a nice position to engage. This Spine is doing some work. But this forward third base making it really easy for Solar to reinforce now, busting down these rocks to make it even easier for himself to reinforce. I love that. 4 Corrosive Biles, of course, just enough to kill an Overlord there. Nice hit. Another Spinecrawler going down. Reynor knows that this is do or die. If he can hold this offensive from Solar, he's so ahead that it should be fine. 2 Spinecrawlers and an Evo Chamber. Another Evo Chamber over there, making sure that these Lings can't run by. It's divide and conquer here. If Solar can force Reynor to be apart and engage with his whole army onto Reynor, then he will take the more efficient trades and eventually be able to kill Reynor here. And Reynor's slow roach is slowly trying to join the fight, and big Corrosive Bile hits. That may prove devastating for Reynor. He can't retreat. He's so slow. Even though he's on creep, he never started that roach speed. Too afraid to lose, because that 100 resources could also be invested in roaches short term. And the third base has been overrun and gets killed by this nice soft power unit spots of the Solar Ravagers. And that is the big key for Solar here. He kept his expensive Ravagers in the back. He kept them alive. He consistently used their Corrosive Bile spell to get more and more value. And now he has 8 Ravagers, 5 more to spawn. And he can just contain Reynor on his 3 bases and slowly but surely whittle him down. Reynor started +2 in all of this. Kind of trying to grasp at straws here. He needs some kind of advantage to get him back to this game. And even though he has a lair, he doesn't have a third base. His main is mining out, and the Lings are here to surround him and deliver a swift strike with the Corrosive Biles on all of his roaches that can't move anymore because of all those Zerglings. And Solar has this game in the bag. Reynor trying to hold on, but he has to pull the drones, and you know, we all know that means it's bad news bears. Who is actually getting onto those Ravagers, but he is down 12 workers. And they're both still spamming units. Like, Reynor, you got a Spire, so maybe. But that Spire was only going to pay off if Solar was going to contain. But Solar went for the bust. And with that bust, Solar showing us that he's busting his ass off in this best of 7. And slowly but surely crawling it back, convincing second win for Solar, and now he's definitely on the board, winning game 5, and we're now 3-2 in this best of 7, where Reynor has 2 more shots to take the last game that he needs to become the champion of HomeStory Cup 23, where Solar still needs 2 dubs to make that a reality. Solar is telling Reynor that, no, I will not go quietly into that dark night. Or quiet night? I don't know. I will not go quietly. I will go down screaming. Or more like clicking a lot on his keyboard. He will raise his APM to the limit. Because he came here to win. And not just to be a stepping stone for Reynor. I love that Reynor tried to pull out another 2-base build. That's his second 2-base build and a best of 7. 2-base is alive and well in ZVZ, my guys. Go try it on the ladder. It feels really good. It's stable. Might not be the most economical, but you can do a lot of cheeky shit with it. Now, this game, we see another complete mirror opening because, of course, this is a mirror matchup. So we first need, the first couple minutes, we need to watch both players go through the motion of doing the most efficient stuff possible whilst not being able to die versus anything that their opponents can do. And then at some point, we see the deviations. We see the stylistic choices. We see their vision on what they think is powerful on which map. For example, the last map we have NeoHumanity with the gold minerals near your natural, that one. It has a short rush distance, so some players, like Lambo versus a laser, think that a 12-pool drone push is just very hard to stop on those maps, so that's what they'll do. Whereas some players will take the opportunity of a nice ramp to play a 2-base build, where other players will see this giant open 3rd base and think, I'm gonna do some Ling Baneling shenaniganry. Whilst the other player feels like, I'd rather just get a Roach Warren, macro up, take a 4th base, and then surprise you with some Mutalisk. Anything can happen really as soon as we've established these 3 bases for both sides. We see an Evo chamber going up for Solar, and I think we all know that this is going to be an armor upgrade. I hope nobody's shocked by that at this point. We've gotten to know Solar style pretty well in ZVZ, and there it is. Carapace is underway. Nothing else just yet. No Baneling Nest, whereas Solar was the first one to build the Baneling Nest in most of this series. Now he's actually delaying it a little. Getting it later. He's actually building a Roach Warren. Never mind. No Baneling Nest in sight. Evo Chambers going down for Reynor as well. Both sides have a 3rd base, which Solar's benefiting from a little bit more. He injected it slightly earlier than Reynor did, but Reynor is up in workers right now. And flying ahead even more. Whereas Solar is playing a little bit of catch-up here, but this is a lot of larvae, and this is a Roach Warren. And these are a bunch of roaches. Solar's giving Reynor a bit of his own medicine by building a bunch of roaches. 9 roaches with +1 carapace. And Reynor knows what's up. We see a spine over here, and we see his own Roach Warren, 2nd spine crawler coming out, but this is a difficult map to defend this on, because if the roaches get here, you're kind of stuck in your own base if you retreat behind your wall, so you kind of want to sit in front of your wall, but this spine crawler, both of these spine crawlers don't really help you with defending that crucial position. And as soon as Solar gets in between these bases with his roaches, he can divide and conquer once more, just like he did in the previous match. And he's walking across the map with roaches and a reinforcing Zergling. Brrr. He's making a lot of them, and they have +1 armor. That makes them pretty scary. And half the army of Reynor is being caught here by the Zerglings. See how these spine crawlers are not actually helping in the defense. Giants around on the queens. You don't want to see that happen if you're Reynor, and now your army is just in tatters. It's actually isolated in the natural, in the 3rd base, and he's trying to connect these slow roaches to the rest of his roach force, but Solar's not letting it happen. These fast Zerglings are tearing him apart. And the third base is ransacked by those Zerglings. 12 drones do go down. And now the Ravagers and the Lings are running into your natural, Reynor. What can you do to hold on? Not much, I am afraid, because the corrosive vials are raining down on your static defenses. Those, of course, can't run away, and the Zerglings are just ruthless. They surround every roach that comes out of your hatcheries and surround you, and then make you ready for a nice corrosive bile raining down on your roach force, or on your larva, or on your static defenses. It doesn't matter. These Zerglings and these Ravagers are here to spell your doom. And Solar is in your natural now. And if you have to sacrifice more drones, this might just be the end. Solar still up. An upgrade. More queens go down. We all know what happens when your queens go down. That's kind of spelling your doom. And Reynor realizes that as well. He GG's out. He pulled the drones. He pulled the queens. He made 2 spines. And still, he could not defend the onslaught of Solar. I can't believe that we are here. But we are. We are in a Game 7 of a grand final between Solar and Reynor. Reynor had so many chances to close out this series. He was on match point after Game 3. He had a 3-0 lead. And Solar just told him that he is indeed inevitable. And it is his turn to take a couple shots. Now both of these guys are battered and bruised. And this is now their moment to shine. This game decides it all. Whomever wins this game is the grand champion of HomeStory Cup 23. And for now, we just see mirrored builds. Solar been mixing it up a little bit more in those last games. Still getting his carapace, but pulling the trigger and moving, bringing the fight to Reynor's side of the map, and successfully so. He divided and conquered his army twice in a row now by bringing out some roaches, Ravagers, and a bunch of carapace Zerglings to make sure that Reynor cannot bring his forces together and actually have one concentrated mass of roach fire raining down on Solar's armies. No consolidating your army for you, Reynor. Solar does not allow such things to occur. Now we are here on altitude for our final Zerg versus Zerg game. Both players playing identical. Sending out a group of Lings to scout. Sending out a drone to take a third base, but they do not take the same third base. That is curious. Solar taking a third base that is slightly better to defend if you have air superiority, because it's closer by air. But if you don't have air superiority, it's really annoying because the mutas will fly back and forth. If you take these bases in a long line, it is easier to defend by ground. If you hold this position, or this ramp, you can move back and forth with your roaches, or your lings, or your banes, or your queens, and you can hold your third and your natural together with your main. Which is a little harder to do with Solar's base. So let's see if Reynor can abuse Solar's third base. Again, we see Evo chambers from both sides. We see Baneling nests from both sides. And they're just mirroring each other to a T. They know it's important. They want to take every advantage they can, but stay safe. See a bunch more drones from both sides. So no giant Ling flood just yet. Reynor's moving out, but that's not indicating anything aggressively. This is just a poke. It's more of a scout. One Baneling from Reynor is moving around here. We see Carapace from Reynor's side, but also from Solar's side now. We see a Roachworm from Reynor. And third base is being saturated. Reynor actually shot up in drones with that little move out. Just one Baneling and a couple Lings. And Solar reflexively responded in kind with a bunch of units and Banelings. So now we see Solar kind of trying to make use of those units. But still, he is slightly behind in workers. Just a little mind game by Reynor. And suddenly he's up quite a bit. Also not investing too much into a big army. He's kind of gambling here that Solar's not going for an all-out attack, and he's just making drones even though the Ling Bane was across the map. And now Roachworm almost done for Solar here. We see no lair just yet, so this is curious. Maybe they are both going for a Roach Ravager Ling attack with +1 Carapace. Extra gas being added on. They're kind of doing the same thing still. But Solar is behind in drones. Reynor is adding on that lair. He's going for a longer game. He has a lot of drones. But Solar is pulling the trigger. Fourth base is being established by Reynor. And once Solar sees this, he's happy that he's going for an attack, I think, because now he cancels the fourth base. And he can move across the map and initiate the doing of damage. At the other side, though, Reynor is now also building a lot of units, and he's making spines once again. Whoa! The run by Solar gets caught by Reynor here. A lot of Lings trying to surround the army of Reynor. And here are the Roaches of Solar. Can Reynor hold on? He has 3 spines in his third base. And Roaches on the high ground here. And Solar tries to do the same thing, but the Roach count of Reynor is looking pretty darn fine. So many workers by Reynor. So kind of putting Solar all in here, but I don't know if the same strategy is going to help again, or the same tactic by Solar. So many Banelings running into just Roaches, trying to get rid of the Roach count. And Solar's army's looking tiny. I think Solar got a little confused here by Reynor. And Reynor's moving in for the killing blow onto the army of Solar. And Solar just GG's out. Reynor takes the game and the series. And Reynor is your grand champion of the HomeStory Cup 23. Just like that, Reynor, with the early mind game, the move out with one Baneling, a small Ling force running across the map, Solar overreacting, being scared. He made too many units and then didn't do anything, and Reynor was sharp as attack. He made drones. He knew Solar wasn't attacking him, and then Solar attacked him later when Reynor was already using his superior economy to make more units than Solar ever could in that game. And just like that, Reynor takes the 4-3 victory over Solar. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that magnificent ZVZ finals between Reynor and Solar. I hope to see you in future videos, and if you would like that as well, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment. Also, don't forget to like. Oh, before I go, I've been wondering which games I should be covering next now that I've finished up the HomeStory Cup. Let me know in the comments what you guys think I should be covering. Maybe I can do the Gamers 8, but maybe those games are a little bit too old. Maybe I can do the recent HomeStory Cup. I think it's called a Real HomeStory Cup. I don't know if any replays are out for that. Maybe you guys have some cool replays that I should be casting. Just let me know down below. I'm open to anything, basically. Cheers.